It's time for the weekly Peacock and Williamson mailbag. A lot of questions about the top of the NFL draft prospects, where they could go. How do you team build? What does it mean when you're drafting an NFL quarterback, and maybe another landing spot for Lamar Jackson on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL on Twitter. That's where most of the questions are coming from on today's episode. You can also drop a question anytime you want on the brand new Peacock and Williamson YouTube channel, and make sure you are subscribed up there. Hit the thumbs up and the notification bell and all that stuff, so you know when we got a new podcast coming. And Matt, I think it's time. I think we're really due to do a live YouTube episode.
Oh yeah,
as well.
Good call.
And get some of y'all in the chat and get a little live mailbag going. Who knows? Maybe next week's mailbag we'll do it. We'll do it live. But today we've got a lot of great questions. It's funny, Matt. We were talking off the air. No matter how much we talk about quarterbacks on this podcast, and then we think, let's avoid quarterback talk this week. We talked so much about it, and 9 out of 10 questions in the mailbag is about quarterbacks. Right. Because if you don't have a quarterback for your team, you're looking for one, and it is always fascinating with the different way teams build their roster, and it starts with the quarterback. And with that, the question number one today from Josh, who is also known as the Jerry Rice of question askers, talking about another team that really hasn't been mentioned a lot as it pertains to Lamar Jackson and jumping into that. And Josh says, what about the Vikings for Lamar? The Vikings could feel like they have maxed out Kirk Cousins' potential and just need a little bit more to get over the top, to get out of that, what we've always called with the Vikings is that QB purgatory, where they're good, not great team, but not bad enough to get one of those top lottery picks at a quarterback at the top of the draft.
It's an interesting fit. I mean, I always think about Lamar in a dome. I mean, he's just gonna be that much faster, and that's a good run blocking line, and there are weapons in place, Hawkinson and of course Jefferson. Would they get the ball to Jefferson as much as you like? Probably not as much as they do now, and he's a franchise-type player. Would O'Connell, the second-year head coach, is this a type of quarterback he would be in for? I mean, he has Patriot roots. He inherited Cousins. I just don't know the answer to that. It's not a yes or a no. I don't know what he thinks about that for 100%. But the problem is you'd have to dump Cousins first. I mean, you can't handle both those contracts. I mean, is there a market for Cousins? Well, they'll take some or most of that contract, and then you make the deal. With the Ravens want Cousins in return. I bet not, considering only renting him for a year.
Yeah, and maybe it would be a stopgap situation for the Ravens, but it would hit the salary cap, and then it looks like the Vikings are just prepared to play this out with Cousins and the way they've redone his contract. I think Cousins now has, after restructures, I think he has 4 void years. So he's going into the last year of his contract, but to keep that cap number down for them this year, he's got void years through, I think, 2028 or something like that, where they're still going to be paying, some sort of cap hit for Kirk Cousins to not be on the roster. But it's tough for an NFL team that doesn't have a quarterback next year. And usually teams are looking at least in 3-year windows. They've got to have an idea of what they want to do in the future at quarterback. You don't just say, okay, he's going to play out his contract, and then who knows? Shrug your shoulders. You got to have a plan there. So is it a veteran? Are they just going to go into the draft next year and try to find a guy? Really interesting with the Vikings, what their plan is. And it's hard to see what that is right now when you've got a starting quarterback going into the last year of his deal, and it doesn't feel like it's going to be a long-term thing with Cousins on the next contract in Minnesota.
Any chance you could see them moving up to 8 for a falling quarterback? Or I know there's Levis and Hendon Hooker questions here that we've been asked over the last 24 hours. If Levis does indeed fall, do they pounce on him and love him? Do you consider Hooker in round 1 like DJ had him going?
I think the more that I look at it, I think something like Levis falling or falling close enough to where they could go get a quarterback in the draft is we just laid out the scenario. If you don't have a quarterback next year, you've got a veteran quarterback right now. It's the perfect stopgap situation to get Levis in, let him sit for a year. He's played a lot of football already. I like the quarterbacks to sit that have already played a lot of football. It's harder for me to envision team building wise with Anthony Richardson because it's like, okay, he's not ready to play, so you got to sit him, but he needs to play. So you get into this conundrum. And the 49ers have seen this with Trey Lance. The thing he needs the most is reps, but if you're not ready to play, you can't get those reps yet, and you get in this weird cycle. For a quarterback like we saw with Patrick Mahomes, and people always say, well, Patrick Mahomes sat for a year. It's like that was completely different. He played a ton of football. He needed to get his mind wrapped around an NFL offense instead of the air raid. He had played the football. The reps wasn't the problem. It was just new concepts, new style of play for him, and it totally helped him to sit behind, because he was sort of a wild stallion. People forget how wild he was coming out of college with the way he played. Sitting behind Alex Smith is like the perfect situation looking back on it for someone like Patrick Mahomes, and with Andy Reid, and sitting behind that and seeing a guy who checks it down and just does things really by the book in his offense, that probably helped him so much. And Kirk Cousins is that same style of player, right? So that would help probably tame some of the rough edges on someone like Will Levis. I think that's probably the underrated thing we're not talking about is the Minnesota Vikings in the draft, finding their next guy, and they've got a perfect one more year of a really good, competent quarterback for that young player to learn behind.
That's really well said, because sure, they could go defense. They could add another receiver to complement Jefferson, but they don't have ridiculous needs. They can live with their own line. They have some pieces in place. That's a great landing spot for me for Levis, maybe for Hooker too. I could understand both. Hooker needs to sit because of injuries either way, but that's well said about Mahomes. Are Alex Smith and Kirk Cousins going to the Hall of Fame? No, but they started a lot of games. They're professional, stable quarterbacks. There's a ton to learn from them. They know when to hold them, when to fold them. They know how to win games, how to manage games. And, people talk about Mahomes' rookie year. Like, everyone in the building that was at practice knew that he was a special talent. That, anyone with eyes saw that practice every day. But he didn't know. He's been interviewed since. He didn't know basic concepts. Really basic route combinations and things like that.
He didn't know. He didn't take a snap from center.
Right.
On air raid, it's so different, especially going into sort of a West Coast terminology offense. And there can't be, if you're in college and you're sitting there in shotgun all day and you look at the sideline and you look at pictures of, Mickey Mouse and whatever on the sideline, you're like, cool, and you go and you I can't imagine how much difficulty that is for a young quarterback to jump into then, like these super long play calls, West Coast terminology in the NFL, taking snaps from center, different footwork, so much going on. Everything's condensed instead of spread out for you.
On the road against Vic Fangio's mind, just toying with you. Or Belichick,
And it's already hard enough for that transition. So, anything that makes it an extra level of difficulty for a transition is going to be tough. And so, and it's where the Parcells thing sort of comes in. It's like, man, those redshirt sophomores, those 1 year starters, it's difficult. So you need to play, and it makes the development a little bit more difficult for some quarterbacks. And when you look at situations, Levis and the Vikings might be one of the best fits I can think of in the NFL.
I was thinking that too. And back to Mahomes, people forget the Chiefs were a playoff team and traded up a handful of spots, like you said. They didn't trade to one.
From 20s to 20-something to 10, right?
Something in that neighborhood, yeah. They moved up the next year's first. They didn't mortgage the future to no end. But they weren't a bad football team. And I think a huge key, too, was I know it's only one game, but they had the opportunity to put Mahomes in what was then week 17, and play a meaningless game, and then it felt good enough that offseason, okay, we'll move on from Smith at that point because we know this guy has to see the field. He's incredibly talented, and he actually got in a real stadium. So we learned a little bit more too,
There's also a connection with Levis, the more I think about it, so the Vikings coaching staff philosophies came from the Rams, and there's that McVay Shanahan umbrella, that tree that's really growing, and it's about a quarter of the offenses now in the NFL comes from that tree. But also Levis has been involved in that, and there's been coaches that coached him from that tree at Kentucky and in college. So there might be a lot of inside knowledge there, and it might be an easier transition for him because he's had some of that terminology in his college game, even though, you know, it didn't look great last year. You know, better talent on his team would probably help him. So that is a very interesting one. I would definitely lean hard toward more like a Levis in game for the Minnesota Vikings than someone like Lamar Jackson.
Yeah. I mean, otherwise we can have this conversation next year. You know, I mean, we're not going to bring Cousins back. We'll go get next year's Derek Carr or Aaron Rodgers, you know, whoever's on the move that's a veteran. But I would rather have the insurance plan of, let's see what Levis can do for a year, or Hooker or somebody like that. And I have my doubts about both those guys, but that's an ideal landing spot for them. And you said, you know, he already sort of speaks the language. You know, he's an 8th grade English student that's going to have to be a master in English as opposed to learning Chinese.
Exactly.
You know, in first grade.
And,
you know?
and not the pressure of, oh, you were drafted top 4 and you're the guy day 1. You know, and I think that could help as well.
Justin Jefferson helps.
Levis, we've got questions about Will Levis as a prospect. We got questions about Hendon Hooker in this draft. I think 2 of the biggest question marks of where they could go in the draft at quarterback. And one more about the Patriots. We talked yesterday about the Pats. Lamar Jackson, another quarterback name for the New England Patriots. Next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs almost here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, super easy to use. Love the website interface. Love the app interface. Could not be easier to find your bets and build your own bets. Then you can start betting on everything. Money line, point scorers, threes drained. Major League Baseball is now going every day all summer long. And, of course, those tasty, tasty NFL draft props. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a bigger chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets back when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. So from Shauna here, asking us a question and referencing yesterday's podcast, we talked a lot about the Patriots and if they're really shopping Mac Jones hard and what's their end game. Is it Bailey Zappi going into the draft? Could they be a landing spot for Will Levis or Anthony Richardson trading up? You know, is a lot of movement, a lot of possibilities to be close to the NFL draft, Matt, which makes this so much fun. And we talked about, okay, it makes sense. They're going to go get Lamar in New England to gear up for Aaron Rodgers and Josh Allen and that division in the AFC East. But what if it's not Lamar? What if it's Aaron Rodgers?
Wow. Bill's like, you're going to drag your feet, Jets? I'm going to steal you.
It's like, well, you're leaving the door open here. I'm going to at least drive the price up for you, and I'm not going to let you get a Hall of Fame quarterback for free. If anybody's getting a Hall of Fame quarterback for free, it's going to be me.
That angle's so awesome. So it's the first I've ever thought of it, you know, so I'm totally, reacting right this minute.
Matt, I got to say, I'm disappointed in us for not thinking about this angle of it yesterday.
It's so Belichick.
Appreciate you, Shauna, for bringing that up.
Just here, take our first round pick. If that's your sticking point, take it. We'll take Rodgers. We'll send you Mac Jones too, whatever. Or Mac can learn from Rodgers and we'll heal all wounds or whatever. So my immediate thought is some history, to be honest with you, because didn't this just happen? Isn't that how Belichick got hired? Didn't he commit to the Jets and then pulled the rug out from under him and went to the Patriots and won 1 million Super Bowls?
And in the division. And
like
then
30 million years ago. But isn't that the history of the Belichick, lineage from Giants D coordinator? Like, I think he committed to be the Jets head coach.
Yes. Yeah.
And maybe even had a press conference.
And then the Jets ended up with Pete Carroll, right?
I think so.
And then Pete Carroll,
because Carroll was at the Patriots too. Like, I'm confused to the whole timeline of it.
No. Yeah, Pete Carroll. But anyway, yeah, the Jets somehow messed it all up because Pete Carroll's winning Super Bowls over here, Bill Belichick's winning Super Bowls over there, and the Jets are inept for 20 years.
And I know this ship has sailed, but for much of my media career, I've been a Rodgers is better than Brady guy. When I'm talking 5 years ago, pre-Jordan Love, and my thoughts were, okay, Brady, I mean, we know a lot more now. Brady moved on to Tampa. Rodgers has won MVP since, Jordan Love was drafted, yada, yada. But I remember many times early, since I left ESPN saying, are we certain? What if Belichick, I used to say this, close your eyes and pretend Rodgers is Belichick's quarterback and it's not Brady. And I'm talking like 7-8 years ago. So that ship sailed a little, but I often said that back in the day, like, yeah, Brady and Belichick are awesome together, but I think Brady or Belichick and Rodgers would be even better.
There would certainly be multiple Super Bowls involved. Yes, I don't know how it would have looked. It could have been even better.
It's hard to imagine it'd be even better, but
physically Rodgers was more talented. And look, for the kids out there that don't remember what Rodgers in his prime was and how he was talked about, it's basically how we're talking about Patrick Mahomes right now after Rodgers won that first Super Bowl, right?
Right. In that era, this was the big thing I always said about Rodgers is of all the Hall of Fame quarterbacks, the best 20 quarterbacks that have ever lived, and this still holds true for his career, nobody has a better highlight tape in Canton. I mean, including Brady. Like, give me your 100 best plays. Now Mahomes is this guy too, but Mahomes didn't exist back then. And nobody has a better low light tape than Rodgers. Like, he has no bad plays.
Yeah, doesn't throw a lot of interceptions.
Right.
It's a pretty good combination.
Belichick would have liked that.
There's some lowlights for some of the prospects in this NFL draft at quarterback, Matt. And the hit rate isn't great for quarterbacks, but you got to keep going back to it because you got to hit your guy. And sometimes Josh Allen had a lot of lowlights as well at Wyoming and his first couple years in the NFL. Became a superstar. So you gotta swing. And you got to find a quarterback. And right now we're seeing just a ridiculously physically talented quarterbacks are the ones that seem to be hitting in the NFL. And Will Levis has that kind of arm, right? He has that kind of
body,
arm talent and body. So the question here from CC Ryder on Twitter is, there are reports that Will Levis has unimpressed in interviews. If he falls, who takes him? Double dip. Why are the Steelers visiting with so many interior offensive linemen with so many other needs? Love the show. So Steelers fan, smart by CC Ryder, putting a non-Steelers question, trying to get a Steelers question answered as well. Because what we do, Matt, and I cover the 49ers, you cover the Steelers. We get so many 49ers and Steelers questions that we usually push those aside and look for the other questions because those teams naturally just come up as we talk about teams. So we're not going to talk about interior offensive linemen for the Steelers. So apologies there, CC Ryder.
I'll give him 10 seconds. I have no clue why they're bringing in Cyrus Torrance after signing guard after guard after guard. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. So that's all I can address.
Doing work, or maybe a little schadenfreude, maybe trying to throw off some teams, right?
They don't need a guard.
So with the reports with Will Levis, and we talked about the Patriots possibly and the Minnesota Vikings possibly being a good landing spot for Will Levis, I think he's going to fall out of that top 4 area. But where he'll land, I don't know. And once you start to fall, we've seen teams go up and get those quarterbacks near the top 10 once they do get out of the first few picks, and it starts to get a little bit cheaper. Teams in the 20s can go up for a future first and go get a quarterback. But as far as the reports go, it's lying season. And so I've heard people say, oh man, Will Levis is great in interviews. He's media savvy. He's so good on the podium and all this. And then I've heard, Anthony Richardson was amazing. Such a great kid. And everyone loved him in the interview process. And Will Levis had was not good in the interview process and felt like he's entitled and all this stuff. So I don't know what to think. And a lot of the stuff is put out there by agents. And if it's not put out there by agents, it's put out there as lies by the team. So I don't even
really want to believe when it comes to the Vikings are putting that out there. So he falls to Minnesota. Exactly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the Vikings are like, oh, hated Will Levis.
He's terrible. Worst guy ever.
So
I actually have a little insight on this.
Everyone's got a reason to leak it. And if you're a team, you're not going to leak good information on the player you want to draft.
You're 100%. I mean, I'm glad you bring up lying season almost every podcast because I can fall into the tidal wave too and be like, oh, yeah. I mean, you really need to put the reservoir on, I mean, it is lying season and it's growing at a rapid rate and nothing's happening around the league in terms of moves, but they're leaking things on purpose, of course. That being said, I hope people know me well enough by now. I'm almost 50 years old, and basically for half of my life, I've been doing this. And I'm as least shock jockey or reporter as you're going to get. But I've never brought this up. But in the last 2 weeks or so, I got third-hand information. You know, I mean, nobody told me this directly that sat down with Will Levis, but they had no reason to tell me, and I didn't ask. And they said the same thing, and that his interviews were not impressive. And the way it was described to me is kind of how you said it was. He blamed everybody else for his and Kentucky's struggles, as opposed to, you know, he blamed his injuries, those around him, system. And maybe he's right. He had injuries and bad people around him, but nobody wants to hear it. You know, just take one on the chin and be like, it was all my fault. I had the best receivers in the league, and my injuries weren't a problem. I should have been better. Maybe he's a swell guy and just told the truth. But that's what I heard, too, was people didn't come across impressed with his one-on-one meetings with teams for that reason.
And, you know, it should be lying season for prospects, too, because that might be the truth, but you just can't say it.
Just don't say it. Right. Yeah. It was all my fault. I didn't play well enough. We should have been 12-0 at Kentucky. We should have beat Bama and LSU, but it was my fault, you know.
So no idea where to place Will Levis in the draft. I do feel like I would put him between 11 and 20. I feel like that's the spot.
Yeah. Does he get past Minnesota or Tampa or one of those type of teams? I bet not. Like, I don't think he falls to the second round.
Or you know, a team trades up and gets him in that
50-year window,
late top 10 area, you know, pick 7, but a team comes up, or, you know, 8 or 9 or 10 team comes up. But, you know, Titans at 11 is where you start to be like, okay, I don't know how much further he's going to fall. He's too physically talented, and, you know, better 2021 tape to fall out of the first round, I would think. But, you know, you never know. And I've got a question about Hendon Hooker. It's even more difficult to place him. Michael says, is Hendon Hooker a sneaky good candidate for Green Bay in either round 2 or trading up to the end of round 1? And I don't know where you think about Hendon Hooker. I think you're higher on him than me. I would probably bet right now, just because I've just the way you follow the draft and knowing what Hendon Hooker is as a prospect, you have to really love a guy and think he's going to be a franchise quarterback to draft him in round 1. I would probably put money that he gets drafted closer to round 3 than round 1. That's where I'm at with Hendon Hooker. But I've seen him in the first round of mocks from some pretty smart people that are plugged in.
Right. I mean, DJ knows his stuff, and he always does mocks, he says, with his ears, not his eyes. You know what I mean? He does his top 50 with his eyes, not his ears. Makes perfect sense. I love the way he phrases that. One quick Levis note before we talk Hooker is many people, and I used to do this too, I used to lump Richardson and Levis together. There's the top 2, then there's those 2. I don't feel that way at all anymore. My thoughts on Richardson are going up, 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 up. I adore him. I like him better and better. Where my thoughts on Richardson are going down, 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 down. You know, like I think that they both won't fall.
Levis.
On Levis, I'm sorry. Yeah. I think Richardson might go 3rd. I think Levis might go to the Vikings or the Bucs or a team like that, or a trade up from the team that missed him early in the first round, get back in the first round. I don't know what to think about Hooker. I almost put Hooker over Levis in my rankings, but part of that's because Levis is dropping. But when you study Hooker, he's overaged, which I don't have a huge problem with a quarterback, because they can play till they're 35 or 38, you know, but they are playing against guys that are younger than them.
And you could argue that it's a much better indicator of coming in and playing well than, you know, the younger, more physically talented guys can tend to struggle. So playing a lot of college football is not a bad thing for a prospect at quarterback. You want young breakout age for other positions, but at quarterback, playing a lot of football is good. So you just evaluate the player. And if he played a lot of football, it's probably even better in a lot of cases.
He has a major injury, you know, but he's not going to be ready for the beginning of the season. So even if your starter gets hurt or you start out 0-3, you might not be able to put Hooker in there if it's a disaster season until late in the year or next year. But maybe what worries me most is the more you study that offense, it's nothing at all like the pros. I mean, they run like 2 routes. It's like Baylor, Corey Coleman era stuff. You know, like it's very simplistic. Go routes to Jalen Hyatt. So if you're already old and injured and you're going to have a bigger learning curve in terms of what you're doing compared to what they're asked, you might be 30 before you know it. You know what I mean?
Right. Which is why that's just a bad combination for a draft prospect. Doesn't mean he's not going to be good in the NFL, but I'm just talking about where he's drafted and how confident a team is drafting him. That's why I would put him. And look, I liked Ritter better last year. He went in round 3, and with so many teams needing quarterbacks,
right?
And I think Desmond Ritter was a better NFL prospect than Hendon Hooker is right now. So that's why I think that at the end of the day, I would bet on him being closer to round 3 than someone jumping into round 1 to grab him.
The logic is, though, if you do love him and it only takes one team, maybe him more than others, you want that 5th-year option because year 1's going to be basically scrapped. You know what I mean? Like, and otherwise, if you take him in this late in the 2nd round, he's probably sitting behind some. Well, he's definitely sitting in year 1, and then you get 3 years to evaluate him if things go swimmingly. You know, real quick though, if I were the Falcons and a genie came out of the bottle and said, "I'll swap you, Hooker for Ritter," I would say no.
Good question about slot receivers, tight ends, the value in the current NFL marketplace. And one more question about quarterbacks. What do you expect to get from drafting a high quarterback? And Jalen Carter's bust potential to finish up today's Peacock and Williamson mailbag. Thank you so much, everybody, for being involved in the Peacock and Williamson mailbag and making us your first listen every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. For your second listen, check out the Draft Dudes Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. You know the Draft Dudes, Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino, do great work taking you through everything, team building, draft, free agency, every day, Monday through Friday. Find it on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Matt, next. Here we go. This question is from last quarterback question here. This is from Jason, and he says, I'm curious to know how much premium you place on the quarterback at the top of the draft. What is the lowest level of current NFL starters you would take at, say, pick number 3 or number 4? Dak, Carr, Cousins, Tua, etc. So basically, Jason's saying if you could look into the future and know what you're getting out of your quarterback, that you're the Colts drafting, say, at pick number 4, would you draft Derek Carr's career with the 4th pick? You're getting a long-term NFL starter. Is that good enough? Or are you really expecting to get more? Not hoping, but expecting to get more out of that number 4 pick.
I think I would go fish, take door number 2, as opposed to Cousins or Carr's career at 4. Wouldn't be the end of the world, especially during the rookie deal, because you could do so much stuff around them. Year 3 of Derek Carr, Cousins is pretty good, and you're going to get the best receiver on them. You're going to trade for A.J. Brown, because you can have that kind of capability.
Yes.
He mentioned Tua, and isn't Tua the definition of that? He was what, the 5th pick of the draft?
Yeah, he was the 5th pick in the draft.
Dolphin fans, would you take it, or would you go fish, go mammal?
Well, they would probably go fish and for Justin Herbert, who with the very next pick.
Sure, like the Chargers are happy. Fins fans, would you take what you know right now from Tua? Not in a lieu of Herbert, just is that good enough for what you paid for him?
Right. That's a great question. Dak, I think, is a better one because I think
Dak's a yes for me.
That's what you're hoping to get. Franchise quarterback worth a $40 million contract. That's the guy, the face, selling a lot of jerseys. I don't think Carr and Cousins are on the Dak level as far as, being the franchise quarterback. And we've seen that because they've been on 2 different teams.
Honestly, if I were the Panthers and you asked me with the 1st pick overall, I get Dak's career, I'm in.
That's a tough one. Number 1, trading all that, I would want more. It's a different conversation with the Colts at 4 because they didn't have to spend 3 first-round picks, for that player, and they just drafted the player. So 1 first-round pick, yes. 3 first-round picks, I want more.
So last year the Steelers took Kenny Pickett at 20. Would you be comfortable saying you drafted Carr or Cousins with that pick? That's not 4. That's not 1.
Yeah, I would to make that pick, I would expect more, I think, because
I'll go fish.
Carr and Cousins you can get Carr and Cousins.
Right, exactly. Right.
Those are available. Those are out there. Now, having Carr or Cousins on a rookie contract versus paying $30 million a year for him is better. And you get to cultivate that player. Maybe you get more, squeeze more out of the rag. But Carr was a 2nd rounder. Cousins was a 4th rounder. They've been available on the free agent market. I would say I want more. And if I could look into the future and say, this is Derek Carr, I would say that's cool. Not a bad pick. It's not a bust of a pick. You're not unhappy in the end. But I would say, I'll wait. Let's do something else and see. Because I think there's other ways to get a Carr or Cousins.
So to bring the podcast full circle, Levis falls to the Vikings. They draft him, and he turns into exactly Kirk Cousins. Are they happy? I say no. I think
they got a cheaper version of the same guy. So is that worth a first-round pick? Because now you could go sign the best free agent on the market in an offseason. Plus, you have Kirk Cousins. So that's better than Cousins.
Oh, it is. And he's younger and he's cheaper. But I still think if Levis falls to the Vikings and the genie comes out of the bottle and says he's going to have the exact same career as Kirk Cousins, maybe he wins Super Bowl, maybe he doesn't, but he's going to be that level player. Would you take it? I'd still say, I'm looking at door number 2.
Joey Bag of Donuts says, is it me or Jalen Carter look like he's going to be a massive bust?
Only it's from the head up, and I don't know the young man.
Yeah, it's too hard to know. There have been guys that did weird stuff before the draft, turned out to be superstar players. The question for me in the end here would be talking to all the coaches. Like, is this dude a glass eater? Then I'm going to draft him. And if he's not, I would not touch him.
And almost everyone in the league has a Georgia guy that's been a teammate on their team, probably.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of people that know Jalen Carter.
Go ask Travon Walker or George Pickens or whoever,
Last one here. And this is from Shantanu on Twitter saying, hey, at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL, with some of the Steelers' top 30 visits, good way to work in the Steelers. It's not a Steelers.
Yeah, nice son.
A lot of top 30 visits being slot possession style receivers. I wanted to ask about them. We've seen those receivers' value in free agency get devalued. Could you explain why a team would carry a receiver like that over a tight end?
Well, Travis Kelce's a wide receiver. Kyle Pitts is a wide receiver. The wide part kind of skews it, but they don't do tight end things. They're big slots. And I think that's what the league is after. You kind of mix in the Steelers there a little bit. They wanted Claypool to be that guy. He couldn't be, because I think the Mike Hiltons of the world are getting phased out. I think the Welkers of the world are getting phased out a little. That if you can be big there and help you run the ball a little bit with some semblance of a blocker as opposed to what Wan'Dale Robinson gives you as a blocker, or have teams count him as a tight end and put a linebacker on him, that's what you're after. You have an Ingrams and,
you get a little better matchup with the bigger slot because if they put a corner on you, you still have an advantage and can run out of basically a 3 wide receiver formation. And you have an advantage there. And they're probably, probably can body up that corner, even if they're not as athletic. And then you put a linebacker out there. Now you have an advantage in the passing game, and you still have a player who could block that linebacker a little bit rather than a Wes Welker. And I would say the Wes Welkers, the little slots of the world are so easy to find. There's about 1,000 in this class, right? The bigger slot, who's an actually really good receiver, is worth more. But I still think tight ends are one of the most undervalued positions in the NFL, whether they're a wide tight end who can block and catch the ball for you, or even the split out tight ends. Guys like Travis Kelce is not getting paid nearly as much. He's not getting paid nearly as much as the top receivers in the league, and he's every bit as valuable. So the best money you can spend right now, probably whether it's draft capital or dollars, is on tight ends. So if I'm running an offense, give me two tight end sets all day long because it's the best money out there.
It is. Well said. Last nugget is, people don't think about this, but when you game plan for a team all week, you have to have rules, and Andy Reid knows this better than anyone. If the Chargers count Kelce as a tight end, whenever he puts out 12 personnel, 11 personnel, well, he's going to do certain things. If they count him as a wide receiver, he's going to do different things, so that really puts defensive coordinators in a bind, and that's what you're looking for.
We're talking edge rushers tomorrow, Matt. We've got Matt's top 5 players plus honorable mentions at every position group in the 2023 NFL draft. Edge rushers up tomorrow, and we'll be talking a ton of draft. Would love your questions. If there's any overflow questions, let us know on Twitter at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL, or on YouTube in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to the new Peacock and Williamson YouTube channel as well. And Matt and I will be back tomorrow right here, Peacock and Williamson.